Hello students, today we are going to start talking about the Summit Learning Platform and specifically what we need to know to be able to even begin to take our first steps. Before doing anything though, I would like you to pull out a composition notebook or some notebook paper or something that you can take notes in. One of the big things that we're going to have to get used to in doing Summit Learning is note-taking, and I'd like you to do that today. For today, just take notes in the way that's most comfortable to you, on the things that you think are the most important. As we get deeper into Summit Learning, we'll talk about note-taking strategies and ways that you can make your notes way better. The most important thing we need to know about Summit Learning to get started are the three main components. Those three components are mentoring, projects and math units, and self-direction, or SDL learning. Mentoring is the first of the three components and maybe the easiest to grasp. In mentoring, you'll be meeting one-on-one with a teacher mentor that's going to help you plan your goals and support you as you work through Summit Learning. Projects and math units make up pretty much the central pillar of those three components. Projects and math units are maybe best comparable to the units that you've worked on in school in the past, where you focused your learning on one specific thing. Summit Learning puts more of a focus on real-world scenarios in that learning that make it better. The final area is self-direction, which you may see referred to as SDL or SDL learning. And this is that part where students work more independently on something called focus areas that we'll get into later. To review, Summit Learning has three main parts. There's mentoring, where students work with a mentor teacher to help set goals. There's projects and math units, and these are sort of like units of study in Summit Learning. And in this, there's more of a focus on real-world skills. And finally, there's self-direction or SDL time. And in this, students work on focus areas without direct guidance. They'll also do things like take diagnostic tests and take content assessments. And if you don't know what those things are, that's okay. That's some vocabulary that we'll cover later. In fact, one of the things that we'll need to cover as we go through Summit Learning is some Summit Learning specific vocabulary, some words and phrases that we'll use throughout our learning that you probably haven't used a whole lot unless you used Summit Learning last year. There is a decent amount of this vocabulary, which is why I definitely recommend taking notes anytime you're going through teacher discussion on the Summit Learning platform. We've got several checkpoints that we want to get through this week. First of those being getting signed into Summit Learning and just discussing the basic Summit info, kind of like we're doing right now. We're also going to break down those individual parts like mentoring, SDL, projects, and the math units. I know some of you had Summit Learning last year and you're ready to get going, but it is going to help us to review, and we have a lot of students that are totally new to this. Think of it as sort of a three-step process. For step one, we're introducing ourselves to Summit Learning. We're introducing ourselves to our teachers and each other. We're practicing our login, and we're discussing the three different components as we're doing right now. In step two, we're going to get a little bit deeper and we'll practice those skills that are going to help us throughout Summit Learning, those skills being things like note-taking and goal setting. We'll also look at outcomes we can expect from our learning, and we'll hopefully get into practice those focus areas in SDL time. Once we've kind of balanced that out, we'll get into step three and we'll begin to tie together those projects, those units that we have. We'll tie together SDL time and the mentoring, and then we'll have what we need that we can go on with for the rest of the school year. Learning check before we go any further. Summit Learning has three main parts. Can you remember what these are without looking down at your notes? For the first one, students work with a mentor teacher to help set goals. For the second, these are sort of like units of study, and in Summit Learning, they focus a whole lot on real-world skills. And for the third, students work on focus areas without direct guidance. They work independently. Can you remember what the three terms for those were? And that's time. Those three parts from top to bottom were mentoring, projects and math units, and self-direction. We're going to wrap things up in just a second, but before we do, I wanted to give you a preview of what Summit Learning looks like from a student's perspective. Once you're logged in, your first page that you're on will have any announcements that your teachers have posted about Summit Learning, about what you're going to be doing that week. If you put your cursor over here on the left side of the screen, you'll notice that there's several tabs: announcements, week, year, progress, college, and resources. The one that I wanted to show you before we go is the year tab. The year tab breaks things down within your individual classes. You'll notice that you have a project section as one of the 3 components we talked about, focus areas, and that'll tie in with SDL time. Additional focus areas and challenge focus areas will also tie into that self-directed or SDL time. To close out this video, if you have any questions about what we talked about today, please write them down in your notes so that we can talk about them in our discussion later. Thanks for watching.